Hi everyone, Amy here with amyswares, and today I'm going to compare some metallic inks. So I'm going to show you what I'm going to be working with. I have Lisa Horton's Cloud 9. I'm going to use Silver Shine. Just showing you the other two colors of this Cloud 9 that I have. This was actually a limited edition set. You can get all three of those together. And then I have Delicata Silvery Shimmer, and then I have the gold and bronze, but I'm just actually going to be using the silver because I have that color in all three sets. And then I have 𝗵𝗄𝗆 Silver and Champagne. So these are the metallic inks that I have, but like I said, I'm going to stick with just the silver so I can compare all three of these brands and show you kind of different techniques and see what they're good at, what they're not so great at, and things like that. Now I have some heavyweight black cardstock. This is from Michaels. I embossed it with that 3D embossing folder. So I'm going to show you a comparison on that. I have some 120-pound accent opaque as well. I'm going to do some stamping. I'm going to do some stenciling, just some ink swiping here. To start, I'm just swiping all three on this white 120-pound cardstock, and I'm going to set it aside and try and gauge how long it takes to dry. So I've got it noted which one. I did it at 9:34, and I'm going to come back multiple times throughout this video and kind of give you a bit of a timestamp to figure out maybe how long things take to dry, what they do when they're heat set, when they're not heat set, and things like that. So right off the bat, I'm doing some direct ink to paper, kind of light-handed brushing over this dramatic 3D embossing. Okay, so you don't want to press too hard. You want to kind of just get the top raised portion. You'll see I do get a little bit of a mess. The cleanest one on these three definitely was the Delicata, but it's also the least dramatic. So stick with me here. I'm just going to kind of walk you through my process and show you what I determined. If you're enjoying this, do please hit the thumbs up and consider subscribing. But I'm just going to kind of show you what I did, trial and error, to let you know what worked best, what I liked best. But they all kind of have their different pros and cons. So this one made the most mess, but it was the most dramatic. The 𝗵𝗄𝗆 was quite dramatic, but was a little bit messy. And then the Delicata was the cleanest in terms of brushing that ink down. So I'm just going to set those aside. I'll come back to them later. Now I'm going to do a little bit of stenciling with some blending foams. Now you could probably use a blending brush, but since some of these are, all of them are somewhat pigment, I know the Cloud 9 is actually a dye-based pigment, so it's a hybrid. I don't like to use blending brushes with anything pigment. I feel like it gunks them up. It doesn't blend well. So I'm having a designated blending foam for each of these colors, and I'm doing it on white and black, so you can kind of see the drama, see how it looks. And I will label these as I move down. I believe the second one, yeah, this is 𝗵𝗄𝗆, so I grabbed a new ink foam or a new blending foam for this, so that there's no cross-contamination or anything. I'm trying to be as accurate as I can with the comparison. And I did also have to grab a blending foam for the Delicata. Now, I am heat setting this because I discovered some interesting things with regard to how they reacted when they were heat set and when they weren't. So here it's 10 minutes. And I'm using clean fingers, one finger for each, to kind of rub on it and see. Now this non-ink set at 10 minutes, definitely 𝗵𝗄𝗆 the most rubbed off. There was a little bit of rub off on all three at the 10-minute mark, but definitely the most at 𝗵𝗄𝗆. Now I want to see how they stamp. I want to stamp with kind of a solid image, and I want to stamp with a little bit of a delicate word stamp because I'm curious how they stamp, because I think all these different things matter in helping you determine which metallic ink is best for you, based on whether you want to stamp with it or ink blend with it or kind of work with embossing. So I want to kind of show you all the things, and then we can kind of compare and contrast what's the best. Now, I've never actually stamped a sentiment with this Cloud 9. So I do it the first time, and it stamped so not great that I thought I had better stamp it again. Maybe I did something wrong. So I made sure it was covered, stamped it again, and nope, same result. So that was interesting right off the bat because I'd never stamped a little delicate word stamp with that before. So I went through, stamped all the hearts, and now here I'm also going to stamp kind of a bigger sentiment just so it's a little bit thicker lines. I will show you a photo in just a little bit, so hang tight. I'll show you more of a close-up with the heart stamping and the sentiments to kind of show you kind of how it looks, how they did. Just stamping through. I'm trying to speed this up a little bit so I don't keep you here all day, but these were all pretty comparable. It's just a matter of the color of the silver is a little bit different. Some are a little bit more warm silver. The drama is definitely there on the Cloud9 with the stenciling, but on the stamping, you can see not so great. 𝘄𝗄𝘄 stamped pretty good. Felt like it was a little bit brighter. Here, I'm just going to zoom in a little bit. 𝘄𝗄𝘄 kind of looked like it might be the best with the stamping. Now I'm going to come back here. I'm trying to remember if I tested these again at this mark, kind of to determine if there was any rub off at this point. I think, yeah, okay. So I'm at about, I think 10 to 12 minutes here ish, roughly, and I'm gonna kind of test again and see if there's any rub off. I'm trying to do the same part of the design so that way if there's kind of a thicker piece of ink in that area, that it's comparable. So at the 10-minute mark, this was interesting. On this part of the design, there wasn't really any rub off on any of them. But do stay tuned because I discovered something a little interesting. But at this point, at the 10-minute mark, it wasn't really rubbing off on those. And those are not heat set. Okay, now I'm curious. So I grabbed some Bristol smooth paper. I want to see if they're water reactive. So I'm kind of doing ink to paper and using water from a water brush pen and kind of pouncing some ink down onto my glass work surface. And I'm going to see if they react to water at all. Now, this 𝘄𝗄𝘄 was interesting. It just really chunked up. The metallic in there just kind of really chunked and didn't want to blend at all. So that was interesting. And it did kind of a similar thing with the Cloud9. It blended a little bit better. But now I'm just going to do some little water flicks and see if they're water reactive at all when I went ink to paper. So I'm just going to let it sit for a minute and I pounce it off. And interestingly enough, there were some water droplets. So kind of the way that Distress Oxide will kind of give you little watermark droplets. The one that didn't react very much was the 𝘄𝗄𝘄. So the two that were most water reactive was the Delicata and the Cloud9. Okay, so now I'm at 20 minutes and I'm going at a spot where there was quite a bit of ink. Okay, so there was a little bit of rub off there, not really any on the Delicata at all. And then I think the most actually was on this Cloud9. So, but again, this was the wettest spot. So not a ton of rub off, not anything to be concerned about. I would say it's comparable to the rub off that you would get with shimmer powders. Okay, so now I'm around 25 minutes. And again, I'm going to do this with clean hands. This is not heat set. So 25 minutes, Cloud9, there's a little bit. And then shockingly, the most is the 𝘄𝗄𝘄. There's a lot of rub off. So what I'm deducing from this is that 𝘄𝗄𝘄 needs to be heat set. And Cloud9 seems to do better when it's not. Now, I don't know if I'm crazy, but this is kind of what I'm piecing together from this. It seems like the Cloud9 does better just being left alone, and the 𝘄𝗄𝘄 definitely needs to be heat set. So here I'm just rubbing over the stamping, and these were all pretty, I don't know, these are pretty comparable. Nothing really noteworthy. A little bit of rub off. Again, these are not heat set. These stamps are not. So I guess it just kind of depends on how much ink you have. I will say on an embossed panel with the Cloud9, I've come back, I don't know, a day or something later, a couple days later, and I didn't get any rub off on pretty thick ink blending over a 3D embossed image. So I think the Cloud9 might take a little bit more time. The 𝘄𝗄𝘄 I have experienced before where it just doesn't ever really seem to dry. So I think the 𝘄𝗄𝘄 you probably want to maybe encase it in some embossing, maybe clear embossing or something like that, just to really set it in. This is a genius tip that I learned from my friend Laura at Meerkat Makes. I had no idea that an adhesive eraser would clean up this metallic pigment ink. My mind is blown. So I'm going to have this super sped up to not keep you here all day, but literally on all 3 of these panels, if there was any bit that was kind of smeared where I didn't want it, I'm telling you, this adhesive eraser lifted it up. My mind is blown. I can't believe this works. If you don't know this, you're welcome. And thank you, Laura, because I did not know this, and this is a game changer. So on this panel with the Cloud9, where I got the drama that I wanted, but I also got the mess that I didn't want, I was able to clean it up with this adhesive eraser. So just kind of cutting off a little bit where it's too gunked up to try and get a bit of a clean section. But this blows my mind, you guys. I cannot believe that an adhesive eraser will lift this up. So that will clean up any mess that you make, and really kind of clean up this technique if you want. Okay, so here I'm coming back again one last time, 50 minutes, so nearly an hour, clean hand. I'm going to do a little rub test again. Again, your recipient's probably not going to be rubbing their hands all over the card. This isn't going to be a huge issue, I'm sure. Even if there is some rub off, they're not going to be just, rubbing it all over the place. But this matters to me. I like to know, yeah, look at that. So nearly an hour, not heat set, and that Catherine Pooler is just rubbing right off. So there was some rub off on Cloud9, next to none on the Delicata. Now we're at about the 45-minute mark here because I did this after that initial, and I'm going to do the same thing on the heat set. So this is where I kind of came to the conclusion that Catherine Pooler, you need to heat set, and Cloud9, maybe not. So you do your trial and error. I would love to know in the comments what you guys determined. If you determined something similar, if I'm just crazy pants here and losing my mind. So again, the most rub off for this is the heat set Cloud9, but again, not really that much. So I don't know, maybe heat set, and that's better for all 3. But this was my comparison. All 3 have their benefits, so you choose what one works best for you based on stamping, stenciling, embossing, what you want to do. So if you found this helpful, please let me know in the comments, and I will catch you next time. Thanks for watching.